Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Nimrod Pod. I am your embattled host, once again, Lou Stump, alongside my brothers in arms, Chet Liftkit and Mel Goodman. It is the most wonderful time of year. So, we want to wish all you Nimrods out there a very Merry Christmas. I will not be dishing out any happy holidays this Christmas season, and I hope all of you Crusaders out there will do the same. Christ calls on all of us to be radical and proclaim the goodness of God unashamedly. The least you can do to save our country and deliver it from evil is speak the truth, the one and only truth. The only path to salvation is through Jesus Christ. Christ is King. Say his name. Now, we are going to cover a ton of different topics today. So let's just jump right in. First, I want to talk about the 2026 governor's races. So far, we have three legit America First gubernatorial candidates that have launched their campaigns for 2026 midterms. We have James Fishback in Florida. We have Mike Lindell in Minnesota, the My Pillow guy. And we have Casey Putsch in Ohio, the great state of Ohio. James Fishback, of course, is the trailblazer that started the America First chain reaction. He launched a campaign devoid of any corporate mega donors. The Fishback campaign is running solely on crowdfunding and digital impressions. The most impressive arm of the Fishback operation is their grassroots social media team. He has created an open network of volunteers committed to doing all the legwork for him and free of charge. All Fishback has to do is, one, make himself available to his volunteers, his voters, and the media. And two, simply give the people what they want. Give the people what no other politicians or any other candidates are willing to give them. Run on policies that put regular Americans first over foreign workers and corporate interests. And unapologetically stand behind your ideas in defense of your constituents. Within weeks of Fishback's official campaign announcement, Mike Lindell and Casey Putsch threw their hats in the ring for Minnesota and Ohio, respectively. As Fishback, Lindell, and Putsch gain momentum, America First gubernatorial candidates will emerge across the remaining 47 states. If you don't trust James Fishback, look at who's funding his opposition. It's AIPAC and Miriam Adelson. Regardless of his opinions on Israel and relationship with Barry Weiss from the past, the Israel lobby is his biggest enemy today. Nick Fuentes was once a Zionist. Tucker Carlson was once a Zionist. Candace Owens was once a Zionist. Wherever you fall on the far right spectrum, they all used to be Zionist, and they have been reformed. So many black-pilled groypers think they can bitch and moan without ever presenting any solutions. Meanwhile, their leader, Nick Fuentes, my guy, Nick Fuentes himself has been preaching that the only solution to our problems is for young men to get involved in politics, to get into positions of power. We have young men completely aligned with America First values, and we have a duty to reward good behavior. Otherwise, we will never have change in this country. Nimrods, do you think America First candidates can save the GOP in the midterms? And what do you think is the number one winning message for the GOP heading into 2026 and beyond?
I don't know if they can save the Republican Party in the midterms. I think there's a lot of old boomers who are so propagandized throughout their entire lives. No fault to them, really. You can approach people about topics like immigration or America being a melting pot or the influence of Israel and how biblical it is. And people will just short circuit, especially those older folks, the Trump-licans, the MAGAs. So I don't know if we're on the path to save the Republican Party in the midterms. But one thing is, you can say whatever you want about James Fishback. Even I am skeptical just because we've had so many politicians come through and lie their way into office just to pick up the young people's vote. But one thing is true. He inspired a movement of politicians that are taking action and going for seats that are trying to make this America First party a real thing in America. So I commend him for that. And he does have all the right enemies. So I say, short term, we might be in a little bit of trouble. Thing that I think is good about that situation is that the left and the Democrats have no message. They have no winning message at all. Nobody believes it. It's just anti-Trump. And at this point, we're not going down the way that Trump has been acting for the most part, for a couple key issues. So maybe we'll pick up some of them too. So I think in the future, we're going to have a real shot. And the movement being started now is good. I'm not discounting the work that people have done in the past, but the fact that we're gaining momentum and people are jumping in and we're challenging Vivek in Ohio, I think this is a good starting point.
I love the America First movement. I'm not sure if it is going to win in each of these individual states. However, like you said, Chet, Fishback propelled the America First movement, at least in these upcoming elections. You've got all of these business owners that have not been in politics that want to take what they know from the business field and what they see from their peers around them in these middle class workers and all the people that they work with and take their beliefs and put them into office. Because oftentimes these lifetime politicians, they forget who they are working and fighting for. So it's always nice to have somebody from the outside come onto the inside. And similar to what you said, since they don't have a background in politics, sometimes the trust and the ethics side of things can be jibber jabbered up until they get into office and they have no clue what they're doing. However, I'm hoping that through their own ethical code and their own ethics that they found in working in business, they can come to find and translate that into policy with hopefully the help of a good team that is elected alongside with them.
Great points from both of you guys. I'll say this, putting the quality of life for regular Americans ahead of corporations, even if it tanks their GDP, is the winning message. Putting American workers first. Immigration reform, cutting property taxes, cutting sales taxes like Mike Lindell has proposed, and ending the H-1B scam. The more Americans that we have employed, making a livable wage, the more Americans will start a family. The more Americans that will be able to buy a home, the more Americans that will be able to retire with dignity. This is the quality of life we're looking for. It seems so unattainable in the current free market system to rise to the top and be successful. And such a small percentage of people get into positions of power where the money that they're raking in truly makes them free people. So instead of making a select few free and enslaving the rest of us regular Americans, we should shift away from a free market system to a free people system. Do whatever it takes to break the people free of the chains of the mega corporations and the deep state.
I want to say something really quick about that. That's a nice idea, but in like a society like this, that's not always possible because you have to have competition. And sure, you can regulate the big guys, but to some extent, that's not always possible if you guys know what I'm saying.
Sure, but you need regulation that protects American workers. You got to think about how much money that our government, our federal government, using our tax dollars and state government and local government, has been taking our money and
Okay.
subsidizing these mega corporations who then pay the wages of imported foreign workers and offshore call centers instead of real Americans. So now Americans don't have jobs and they're not making money. Think about all the money that we send overseas. Think about all the money that gets wasted on federal workers, not regular Americans working blue collar jobs, federal bureaucrats that don't do shit and don't add any value. We're paying their salaries and we can't even get employed and make a livable wage. So the government has the ability to regulate businesses and incentivize businesses not to build AI data centers where there doesn't need to be any, not to hire foreign workers, not to offshore critical business processes, and actually empower Americans. There's so much money that is going outside of our country and that is going into the hands of these mega corporations instead of sharing the wealth. Like, we are the most wealthy country in the world. Our GDP is unbelievable. But how many of us are enjoying that? I'm not a socialist, and I am as free market as it gets. But we're not protecting the American people, and we're actually like passing these regulation cuts that are completely boning the American people, and in the end will make us subservient to foreign countries who actually have infrastructure and are actually self-sustainable. So we need to think about these things. It's not communist, it's not socialist to say we need to think about American workers and not just line go up GDP Republicans.
So I absolutely agree, Lou. In theory, the free people over the free market theory, I would love to see that. I am not socialist whatsoever. However, I believe with a little bit of government intent or political intent, we can take these huge mega corporations and get them to be more competitive in terms of what people can purchase and afford for themselves. Create competitiveness outside of these large monopolies to make it more of a free people society. Also, something else people don't fully understand about GDP is even if our GDP goes down because of these deportation and other methods of keeping America first, GDP is not everything. Obviously, GDP is the amount of money that is spent over the year between all of people and made by all of these people. However, just because our GDP would go down if we had less people in the United States, that doesn't mean our market isn't as strong as it was the year before, for example. So that's a misconception people have. And as long as the voters are educated, I think they'll be able to see through this and see that these America First people are trying to keep money in the average American's pocket.
One more thing on that before we move on. I think I liked what you guys were saying there, and I heard this from Fishback that the free market is a means to an end, and what we're really going after is a free people. And he said if we were going after a free market as the goal, then we would be selling slaves in the parking lot of this building right now, because that's the free market. But one thing I want to stress, when we go down the road of regulation, if we want to protect American workers, if we want to sort of hamstring these corporations in some way or another, then we have to make sure that it hits them. A lot of the regulations that get passed right now, even from the Democrats, they don't hit the corporations. They hit the smaller startups, the smaller companies, family businesses, mom and pop shops, and they can't handle those blows. The mega corporations, they have enough capital and they have enough people that they can work around these things, especially when they're donating all the money to Trump's campaign or whoever's campaign. They know what they're doing. So I think we need a fundamental shift in the way we run our political system, and that has to do with lobbying. So if we don't change that, the politicians that we put in power, no matter what they say they're going to do, no matter who they say they're going to protect, they're always going to be looking out for the people that gave them the most cash. So this might be a bigger project than just James Fishback running it up the ladder in the state of Florida. But I like the path that we're on.
The next thing I want to hit on these 2026 governor's races, Mike Lindell. For any of you out there that don't think Mike Lindell is real, for any of you out there that think he's just a rhino Trump surrogate, let me tell you a little bit about Mike Lindell. He's the My Pillow guy. Mike Lindell started the largest organization dedicated to upholding election integrity and exposing election fraud. And for this reason, because he was so successful and exposed so much of the deep state's corruption, he was attacked by the same Democrat law firms that went after Alex Jones. And just like Alex Jones, the Soros-appointed judge in charge gave Lindell a default judgment, meaning he deemed Lindell guilty without a trial by jury and a jury verdict. That is illegal lawfare. The attacks against Mike Lindell are real, and Mike Lindell himself is real, just like Alex Jones and Nick Fuentes are real. And regardless of how real you think he is, we need Lindell to liberate Minnesota from the reign of Tampon Tim Walz and the Somali caliphate. Prove me wrong, Nimrods.
I don't know if I can, Lou. I don't know if I can prove you wrong. I think you're right. And Tampon Tim Walls, the things I'd do to be able to drive by his governor's mansion up there in Minneapolis or wherever it is and call him a freaking retard are endless. I'd do anything for that opportunity.
I love this guy. I love people like Mike. I love people who are business owners, very successful, and then they take all of the opportunity that they can continue to make money and they take their efforts and put them towards politics because they truly believe in something that they want to achieve. And that's why I love people like this. They have energy, they're eager to make a difference, and I'm excited to see what this guy can do. Hopefully, he can show us what he's like in the debates and with his campaign coming up.
I have another interesting detail about Mike Lindell. I know he's running for governor now, and I know we said that he was the My Pillow guy. But if you're familiar with the online right wing, especially the alt-right, his My Pillows on the commercials were priced at $14.88 for a very long time. And so he's America first as it gets. He's been on our team forever. So let's support him.
And they manufacture in the United States, in Minnesota, the same state he grew up in and started his business in. That is where they operate. They are 100% made in America. He employs hundreds of great Minnesotans, great Americans. And he waited this long to announce his gubernatorial candidacy because he wanted to make sure that My Pillow could stand on their own once he left to run for office. That is America first. And speaking of states that are controlled by an Islamic caliphate or even a Jewish cabal, let's look at Texas. Do you guys think that an America First candidate will emerge in Texas to challenge the incumbent, Greg Abbott? I think if we lose Texas, we lose the GOP. We can't have another do-nothing Republican term where the Muslims expand their sleeper cells and Epic City becomes a bustling metroplex. We need to take action. We need to end the hate speech and anti-Semitism laws that are running rampant across the state. There is a covert alliance between the Israel lobby and the Muslim lobby in the state of Texas. They are in bed together to defeat white Christians and the Republican Party here in Texas. And I think this is a pressure point for the future of our country that people aren't talking about. I'm glad to see that Ken Paxton's running for senator, and I'm glad to see that Aaron Reitz is running to replace him as the great attorney general of the state of Texas. These are elected officials, right? This wasn't appointed by Governor Abbott. Ken Paxton may be the best attorney general in the entire country, and to be honest, he should be our U.S. attorney general instead of Pam Bondi or anyone else. And I'm glad that we're replacing him, but he was not an appointment by Greg Abbott. So you can't tell me all the accomplishments against the deep state by Ken Paxton happened under Greg Abbott's watch, because that is simply not factual. Do you guys think anyone's going to step up in Texas? Do you think they have a chance? Or do you think this is being massively overlooked?
I definitely think this is something that we can't look past. Texas is such a huge state. It's imperative that we have it on the right side of the aisle. And I haven't seen anybody step up as of yet to replace Greg, but I also don't know why anybody votes for Greg Abbott. Besides the fact that he's a familiar name on the ticket and that he calls himself a Republican, I haven't seen any reasons for anybody to vote for him. Same thing with Byron Donalds in Florida. But if we had somebody step up, there's so many young people that are pouring into Texas that I think we could have a real shot. And even if they want to go down the road of no immigration or we're going to prevent people from Muslim countries from coming here, I think we'd still have a shot. I think the Latino people in Texas are more on our side on those two issues than the white people in Illinois. So I think we could have a real shot. I want to see somebody step up to the plate for sure.
I think we beat that one to death. I think we really bent over the midterms and had our way with them consensually. Now, I want to move over to a quick hot button issue. Assisted suicide is running rampant across North America. Canada specifically has this MAID program where they essentially trick people into killing themselves. And it has risen to become one of the leading causes of death in the country. I think over 20% of all deaths in the country of Canada come from assisted suicides by the government. A common misconception is that the MAID program is just a Canada thing. No. It's actually already completely infiltrated the United States of America, and we need to wake up to it. There is a program in many Western states called Die with Dignity. It's the Die with Dignity program. And I'll tell you one thing. It's not the option to die with dignity. It is doctors coercing broken and sick people into taking their own lives. They legitimately force patients to take a lethal potion, a liquid that slowly and painfully kills them. In fact, the longest instance recorded was approximately 148 hours of pure torture before the satanic potion eventually ended the patient's life. Pure misery for 148 hours. And you're telling me this is dying with dignity? I think not. Nimrods, what worries you most about this assisted suicide? Do you think the Trump administration is aware of what's happening? Like, why have we not heard anything from HHS Secretary RFK Jr. on assisted suicide? And why is it able to exist at the state level in the United States of America, a Christian country that is pro-life and anti-abortion?
So first of all, Lou, I think this whole assisted suicide thing is a complete abomination. It's like we're watching an episode of Black Mirror that came in real life. I do love to be the bearer of good news here. It's not 20% of deaths in Canada. It's only 5. It's 1 in 20. So, good news. It's not that bad in Canada so far. I do remember hearing a story or reading a story last week that was about a woman who needed emergency lymphatic surgery or something of the sort, and they wouldn't do it in her province. And they said, you can't do it in this province because our nationalized healthcare won't cover it, and we just won't allow it. And then they offered to let her kill herself, which is absolutely unbelievable. I can't believe we're at this point in the world. And, I'm surprised we haven't heard anything from RFK or Vance or Trump about it. I think if we make enough noise on X, then we will. They'll start denouncing it, and then they'll start pressuring them. And as for its existence in America, we've gone down a path of degeneracy for a long time now. And it's only now being uncovered and stopped. For a while, people were afraid to say anything. So that and Planned Parenthood need to be completely outlawed in this country. Absolutely.
I'm going to go ahead and read off the states in the US that assisted suicide is legal in. The 12 states are California, Oregon, Vermont, Washington, Colorado, Maine, New Jersey, New Mexico, Hawaii, Washington, D.C., and Delaware. From a Christian perspective, and for all you Nimrods out there, I don't care what your faith is. Obviously, I hope you're following along in our Bible series, no matter what your faith is. The first 5 books of the Bible are the Torah. So hopefully you can at least follow along for that. But from a Christian perspective, assisted suicide is still suicide. It is not our right to choose the timing of our death. And it's really, in my opinion, no different than suicide. If you kill yourself, that is your timing and not God's timing. And I'm a big believer in the plan and fulfilling your role as a Christian or as a religious person believing in a one God. And you can't choose your own timing. You were brought here for a purpose. If you can't find that purpose, or if you're sick and maybe you can't afford treatment, I still believe you got to stick it out. I still believe you got to find these last few months, these last few days of your life to make a difference, whether that's with the people in your life or the work that you do, or just go online and on social media and try and inspire some people before you're passing. Don't take the easy route and do assisted suicide. That's my take.
Kelsey Sharon went on InfoWars a week and a half ago to raise the alarm on the rise in assisted suicides in the United States. In fact, I'm looking at her profile right now, and apparently breaking news, the New York governor says she has reached a deal to legalize medically assisted suicide in the great state of New York. Make sure you're following Kelsey Sharon because no one else is talking about it. Kelsey Sharon was brought in to advise the State Department on assisted suicide, but they've done nothing about it. And I know what you're thinking. The State Department? Why not HHS? Well, that's because this satanic horseshit is happening in the country that exists on our northern border. Maybe instead of invading Venezuela, why don't we invade Canada? They are run by the International Red-Green Alliance. They are slaughtering countless white Christians all over their state through this assisted suicide program. All the drugs are now being smuggled through our northern border because during the first Trump administration, Trump attacked all the cartels and they stopped selling fentanyl through the southern border and through Mexico. The actual drugs are coming through Canada. And Canada is the guinea pig for the WEF and the WHO and every single other globalist, deep state, communist, New World Order organization in the world. We should be going after Canada. We should be liberating the Canadian people. I honestly would be pleased if we went into Canada and swiftly overtook it, not just for our benefit, so that we don't have a communist country on our country's northern border, but for the people of Canada's benefit. They can't have guns. Their children are not protected. They are transing every little boy and little girl across their country. They are ground zero for replacement migration. If you want to preserve white people, if you want to preserve European people, if you want to preserve real heritage America, you need to liberate Canada and save them from further destruction. You could say it's too late, but we have the power as their neighbor to fix it all overnight. Gentlemen, do you agree?
Yes, I agree. We do have the power to fix it all overnight. There is a spiritual objection that every person with a soul should have to this process. So if you don't have one, I suggest you pick up a Bible and ensoul yourself and grow into a fully functioning human being. So I think with the pressure of the United States government, we can end assisted suicide. I don't think there's a single argument in favor of it. There's a lot of these things that people are just doing because nobody will stop them. And there's no argument for this to happen. So if we're serious about making America healthy again, if we're serious about being a Christian country and guided by the principles of God, then let's just put some pressure on and see if we can take care of this issue before it's too late.
I'm going to be a realist here. And it's not that I disagree with you all, but first we have my body, my choice. We're killing babies. And I don't think the government's going to step in because they're going to leave it to the states. And then you're going to hear my body, my choice, but for assisted suicide. However, what people don't understand is you do not have the right to kill yourself. Sure, you can say it's my body, I can do whatever I want to it, but the majority of people in the world believe there is a creator, and you owe the creator out of thanks and gratitude to live your life. So don't tell me it's my body, my choice when you are short ending the grace that God gave you. So I truly just don't think the higher up politicians are going to be able to defend this argument. I mean, they haven't been able to do it with abortion for the most part. People are still finding ways to do it. They're still trying and successfully finding ways to have big political figures support this. And I think it's going to be the same rabbit hole we go down. So I really have little faith. And it definitely hurts me spiritually to have to say that.
Great point, Mel. And to our Nimrod audience, I think we owe you guys a full deep dive, maybe even a full series on what it means to be pro-life. It doesn't just mean opposing aborted fetuses. It means opposing post-birth abortions, opposing assisted suicide, opposing the killing of innocents, for example, in endless wars that we are either funding or actively participating in the massacre. This whole pro-life thing is so much bigger than abortion, but abortion deserves even more attention than it is getting. I think we all remember when former Virginia Governor Ralph Northam went on a radio interview and endorsed publicly post-birth abortions. Governor Northam actually was formerly a surgeon that worked in a wing of a hospital that would tell the parent their baby was dying, and then they would take the baby away as if it was already dead, keep it alive for a few weeks while they wait for a suitable recipient, and then the hospitals would have the opportunity to make $300,000 to $400,000 selling the aborted fetus with all of its organs intact from the post-birth abortions. This is not a policy problem. This is a spiritual problem. Say what you want about the separation of church and state. At some point, there is a moral, ethical dilemma that must be addressed, or we will all experience the wrath of God on Judgment Day. Did you guys see this interview?
The fact that this situation exists and these people are unpunished is horrifying to me. We live in a world where not only do people think to do this just to make a few extra bucks, but they don't get in trouble for it. You could get in trouble for having a tail light on in your car. You could get in trouble for going 10 miles over the speed limit on the way to the hospital to help your wife deliver a baby. But people are chopping up not even aborted children, newborns, for organ harvesting, and they're not facing any criminal charges. How disgusting. We need to get eyes on this instantly. RFK, Vance, Trump, Stephen Miller. Let's get Stephen Miller involved. Get the hounds on these folks. Make sure this doesn't happen again in our country.
These people don't have the right to ethically choose if these people are going to enjoy their lives or not, whether or not they have a parent. If I happen to find that I'm infertile, I'm absolutely going to adopt. I want kids, and I will take the forgotten about, left behind children and raise them as my own so they can have an awesome life. Obviously, we have the foster system where kids grow up in a rough way, but they're still living. They still have the opportunity to choose joy, to see the good things in life. And you never know if one of these foster children or left for dead children that become adopted could go into policy and could hopefully bring a different perspective that can change this entire my body, my choice movement and have a huge impact on the world. It is not physicians. It is not these individual people's decision to choose whether or not this being with a conscience can live or die. If you all want to be disgusted, go ahead and look at a third trimester abortion. And then whenever we get video evidence, go ahead and look at a live killing of a baby after it was delivered.
Back in the day, I was unfortunate enough to see the graphic image of a third trimester abortion. And it's as disgusting as you think. You know, third trimester, that's the last 3 months of the pregnancy when the woman is fully pregnant belly. You know, she's about to give birth. Some babies are born at 6 months and they're alive today. They're viable. So just absolutely unacceptable in a country that was founded on Christian values. We need to be the ones to put a stop to it.
100%. And it's not just disgusting. It is wicked. It is pure evil. It is satanic. And we, as Christian Americans, must oppose the death cult. We have the opportunity. We have the privilege. Hell, we have the right to participate in society, to participate in politics. So get up off your fucking asses so we can stop slaughtering the future of our country. Over 30% of Gen Z was murdered by an abortion. We need to do something about it. There's a deep dive coming in hot from the Nimrods. So keep an eye on your timeline and turn on those notifications. Smash that like button. I want to pivot over to the Jews, the tiny hat guys. Nimrods, I got a question for you. Nick Fuentes got a lot of heat on his Piers Morgan interview for referencing organized Jewry. He actually did reference it on Tucker Carlson a few weeks before that. And Tucker took that as Nick being anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish person. Nimrods, what does organized Jewry actually mean?
Well, you don't have to look any further than the people who run organized Jewry themselves. They will brag about it. They'll brag about it. They'll say we have global Jewish organizations that are doing, a number of things. They'll claim to have started communism. They'll claim to be the founders of modern leftism in America. They'll claim to have supported all of the refugee programs and immigration programs that we've had in the past 60 years. So the global Jewish organizations, HIAS, the World Jewish Congress. They meet up and they brag and they talk and they literally spell out the fact there is global organized Jewry in the world. But whenever Nick or anybody else that's a Gentile or a Goyim wants to point it out, then they want to pull the anti-Semitism card. So it's just a catch-22, you know, damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I think at this point, we need to be shielded from these isms and these labels that used to scare people, and we just need to speak the truth. So there it is, Nimrods.
I've got a little bit more of a middle of the way perspective on this situation. So in life, psychologically, we are going to choose favorites in terms of people and ideas that correlate with what we believe. So, for example, it's easier for me to be friends with a Christian. It's easier for me to be friends with somebody who has the same beliefs as me because we bond over those things. I'm not saying it's right, but the same thing happens in business. The same thing happens in politics. And at some point, I can kind of see where Tucker is saying that might be a little anti-Semitic because you're pointing out one group of people that are doing what a lot of other groups in the world are doing. So singling out one group when the masses are doing it at the same time seems a little bit like targeting to me. And while I don't always believe in the ideas and the groups that the so-called organized Jewry does, I do think Nick might have a bad perspective on this.
We are not targeting them. They are targeting us. There's a rabbi named Yehuda Kaplan, Trump's pick for U.S. anti-Semitism czar. And he's saying the State Department, which we just heard about in the assisted suicide talk, has a whole division dedicated to battling anti-Semitism on the internet. They are going to track your internet usage. If you say anything bad about the foreign government, the secular government of Israel, the Jewish people, or people trying to do this exact thing, censorship, then they're going to label you as an extremist. And so this is a massive problem. Even if you're out there and you're a moderate, middle-of-the-road guy, they're taking away your right to free speech. And as he says, tech leaders, many of whom are Jewish, have already offered their assistance. So while that's foreboding and ominous, and I absolutely hate it, they're admitting to it. If Nick Fuentes says that Jews run the tech industry or the media or something like that, it's instantly called out as unacceptable, anti-Semitic hatred, hate speech. They would put him in prison for that. But here we are. This rabbi, the anti-Semitism czar, says the tech leaders are Jewish. So what are we doing here? We need to put a stop to this. It's just the same story as Randy Fine and everything that they've been trying to do. They're trying to pass laws to censor Americans, and it needs to stop. It doesn't matter which group is doing this, but they are doing it right now.
World Jewry or organized Jewry is the term, Mal, for the organized international Jewish population that sees itself as a single unified people. This term does not refer to all people that are ethnically Jewish, meaning descendants of Abraham. In fact, the folks that the Jews kicked out of Israel and forced them into the West Bank or Gaza have stronger ethnic ties to Abraham than the white Europeans that took their place in the secular state of Israel. And we're also not talking about all people that practice one of the several sects of Judaism. This term is referring to the global cabal that controls the most influential power centers in the world. It refers to the people that overtook an entire nation and called it their own and labeled their people the Jews, despite not having strong ethnic ties to the descendants of Abraham and the descendants of Jacob or Israel. The supposed world Jewry has international organizations like the World Jewish Congress that Chet mentioned that are serving the Jews' interest. Hell, they have their own fraternities. They have their own political lobbies like AIPAC. They have their own think tanks. They have their own gym chains like the JCC. They have their own individual communities where you have to be a Jew to live there. This is so much more nuanced than people understand. We are not racialists. Nick Fuentes has said it himself. He is not a racialist. He is not a racist. He is a Christian. And as a Christian, you believe that all men were created equally in the eyes of God. Every man is redeemable. Christianity is the only universalist religion where we believe any sinner can be turned to Christ if they simply surrender to him and repent. So we're not racist. We're not singling people out for the way that they were born. We're not singling people out for the way that they were raised. We are identifying a power center that is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, threat to Western civilization and Christianity in the world. Hell, it could be the greatest threat to humanity in the world. And it's great that people are starting to treat it as such. Here's my question to you, Nimrods. How many Jewish people do you know that actively practice Judaism? Think about all your Jewish friends. How many of them follow the 10 Commandments? How many of them go to temple on the weekends? How many of them engage in Passover? How many of them put up a Christmas tree during Christmas time, even though they reject Jesus Christ? None of the ones I know do. They may have had their bar mitzvah or their bat mitzvah when they were a little kid, but they didn't continue their spiritual education after that. Am I wrong, Nimrods?
No, I don't know any either. I mean, there's ethnically Jewish people, they'll identify as it, but I don't think it's really important, their religion. I think it's important that they're a group and an international group that has an in-group bias stronger than that to their tie to the nation that they live in. And so this doesn't apply to every Jewish person in the world, but the people that are pushing censorship laws on Americans, the people that run the Israeli government, the people that are exterminating Palestinian children, they're all operating under the guise of Judaism and under the shield of calling every criticism of them anti-Semitism. So what else is it? What else is it?
It's funny you bring that up, Lou. I actually think about this quite frequently. All the Jewish friends, American Jewish friends that I have, it doesn't seem like they have any real faith. Very few of them are going to synagogue, and I'll ask them, and they haven't gone in months or even a year. And then I look at the way that they live, and it doesn't seem like they're living out whatever faith that it is they believe in. For many of them, it seems like they don't even know what they believe in because they're not practicing. And then I come to question, I'm like, well, if you're not practicing and you're not reading, why don't you at least give Christianity a shot so you can try and follow a blueprint and get into and see what that religion has to offer? So to some sort of extent, it's almost like I look at them a little bit differently than somebody who has a different faith and that believes in it. For example, Muslims, they are true believers. You see them practicing their faith. You see them participating in Ramadan, fasting the entire day, praying, living out their life. And I respect that. I respect that so much because if you truly believe in something and you practice it, I am going to respect you for that. But for all these American Jewish people that I know, I don't have much respect for their religious beliefs because I'm not even sure what they believe in. I don't even think they know what they believe in. And some of them even say that they're like half Jewish. And I'm like, just make up your mind. Just make up your mind. Do you believe in this or do you believe in that?
I want to stress to all the Nimrods out there, we don't need to be fully anti-Semitic. And that's not the point of this. It's not that you need to take everybody that has Jewish ancestry with a one-drop rule and send them off to the camps. We just need to protect our national sovereignty from any foreign influence. And that includes people lobbying on behalf of their religious and ethnic group. That's the end of it.
I think regular people get coerced into identifying as a Jew, into becoming part of the organized Jewry, the organized Jewish cabal. I think these people are unified by a shared fear of persecution that's ingrained in them by their fellow Jews, especially their parents. This definitely heated up after the Holocaust, but if you think back even further in history, Jews repeatedly invade and get kicked out of wherever they occupy over and over and over again. You could call it religious persecution. You could call it ethnic persecution. Or you could call it maybe they need to stop taking over people's land and causing problems and stay out of other people's business. These people don't practice or engage in their faith at all, but suddenly become the most staunch supporters of Israel when a Muslim gets within spitting distance of the Holy Land. And need I remind you that Israel does not mean ethnic Jews. Israel does not mean the nation of Jacob and Abraham and Isaac. Israel is a secular state with a cleverly chosen name to swindle regular-ass Jewish people into allowing this cabal to expand their power and tighten their stranglehold on the West. I mean, hell, let's look at the Bondi Beach shooting. Within minutes of this atrocity happening, we have Bibi Netanyahu calling for all Western nations to impose strong hate speech and anti-Semitism laws that will prevent people from talking bad on not ethnic Jews, not religious Jews, the state of Israel, the fucking state of Israel, the state of Palestine. That's what it is. It's the same thing. They just like to use the word Israel and they like to call themselves a Jew. The state of Palestine. What did you guys think about this Bondi Beach shooting? What do you think's really going on?
I don't want to go too deep into any false flag allegations because I don't think there's all that much evidence for it. I do think that maybe these two Muslim guys that shot at this beach were probably just Muslims, and they were probably just carrying out a terrorist attack against the Jewish people in Australia for their Hanukkah celebration. So I think that's very plausible, actually. And I think that this is a consequence of mass immigration. I think when you have a tribal war that goes on between Jewish people and Arabs in the Fertile Crescent area, Israel, Syria, Lebanon, everything over there, and you bring it into your backyard, you bring it into Australia for no reason other than because diversity is our strength, then you get those same blood tribal conflicts in your backyard. And that's what that was. So one thing I will say, the Jewish people on X are sounding off about this. They're sounding off. They say we need tight anti-Semitism laws right now to save them from this again. And they said, one of them actually said 2,000 people were gunned down, and then clarified under the post that they said that because there were 2,000 people there and they would have been gunned down had the shooters had 2,000 rounds. But they only got, I don't know how many, less than 10. So hilarious, by the way. But they say we need anti-Semitism laws and gun laws, which are the two hallmarks of the leftist ideology. And it's honestly one big metaphor for the entire leftist ideology, where they say, here's a problem, let's go put a Band-Aid on it that isn't going to work, literally a flimsy Band-Aid that's not going to work, instead of addressing the root cause, which they sponsored. HIAS sponsored mass Islamic immigration into Australia. They brought their tribal conflict with them and shot up the Hanukkah celebration. It's just a chain reaction. So let's address the source of the problem.
I honestly think we can just throw out the false flag narrative and we can look at the fact that Israel and the Jewish lobbies fund every single Islamic extremist rebel group across the Middle East and across the globe. They fund all the open border policies, and they fund the foreign wars that force replacement migration to happen, that enable people that hate countries like America to invade countries like America and commit acts of terror against the people of America because they hate what America did to their people. Forget the false flag narrative. This could be a coincidence, but it was enabled by policies pushed by AIPAC, Israel, and all these other Jewish interests. And I think that's what we should point our attention.
I don't know too much about this Bondi Beach debacle that just recently happened, but I do believe it is a horrific terror attack, more than likely. But let's just point out that this is not the only group that's being targeted by these extremists. We've got the 300 Christian school children from Nigeria that were abducted by these Islamic extremists. And that got very little public attention. Not all the bodies have been returned. We don't know if they are still dead or alive. So all of this anti-Semitic uprising and policy making just seems kind of ridiculous when we have these other groups being targeted as well. So it's just kind of ridiculous that we're only taking into account one group of people here.
Let's shift gears now. Since we're talking about the Jews, let's talk about their best friend, Candace Owens. Everybody knows that Erika Kirk and Candace had this private meeting behind closed doors to air out all their grievances for 4.5 hours. And Candace said it went great. And then she had this stream yesterday where she explained exactly what went down. And we can sit here and criticize her for rescinding prior statements or having a change of heart for TPUSA. But I want to focus on what both Candace and TPUSA are doing wrong. Candace Owens and TPUSA are destroying the people's trust in independent media. The top comments on Candace's stream after meeting with Erika said, "Well, I guess I'm done with politics now." It is already so hard to know what's true and who you can trust. The right as a whole needs to make a significant effort to earn back the people's trust and keep people engaged. Candace ran this whole shindig like a business. And then TPUSA just lied to us over and over again and gave contradictory statements that forced people into Candace's arms. If we lose the 2026 midterms and the 28 presidential election, the American Republic will fall. And we need to do something about this divide in the GOP.
I think number one for the Nimrods, keep women out of politics. Two of our most polarizing women figures, Candace Owens and Erika Kirk, get in a room, and what do they accomplish? Not a damn thing. Not a damn thing. It's infecting the people that run politics on the men's side of things. It's infecting them with this do nothing, chat it out, waste time, waste precious time mentality. We can't have it anymore. Women out of politics. Any sane country would do it. Thanks for your time.
I'm just glad they finally talked instead of continually beefing over Twitter, over X, for everybody to pick a side and realize that two people who both care for the same individual that was killed are beefing, and why. Obviously, Candace has a different perspective, and she's asking questions and making sure that the story is right. And Erika is just trying to mourn and get over this situation and try and continue on with her future and the future that Charlie probably wanted for her. So the fact that they can get into a room and talk about it and find some similarities and some discrepancies and get those fixed to realize that they're both on the same team fighting just from a different perspective, that's what life is about. One-on-one conversation. I hope they accomplish something, and I hope they realize they're on the same team so they can quit confusing the rest of us.
And I actually want to add on top a bit of a disclaimer. Candace is actually the only person attempting to solve this crime. TPUSA isn't. Federal government certainly is not. The state of Utah is not. All of the tips are going to Candace's tip email address. All of the new information is being sent to Candace and communicated to the people. You could argue that she should just release any information she has as soon as she has it, instead of stretching it out to get more views on her podcast and to increase retention and get people to watch her show again. But Candace is the heart and soul of the investigation into what actually happened to Charlie Kirk. We have people like Nick Fuentes and Alex Jones getting on Alex's show today and saying, Candace is crazy. It was Tyler Robinson, inconclusive. And that's just wrong. TPUSA has been saying over and over again that inconclusively, Tyler Robinson was the murderer. He was a lone gunman, and that's that. Meanwhile, TPUSA tells Candace, oh, we actually have no inconclusive evidence in the case. We don't have any clear footage of him on campus. We don't have an admission. All we have are accusations and hearsay from his parents. That's it. So we can continue to shit on Candace, and I think she needs to change the way she approaches this situation, but we can't stop asking questions. I mean, the same thing has happened over and over and over again. Jeffrey Epstein, RFK, JFK, MLK, Malcolm X. People just stop asking questions and they trust the Fed narrative. We can never stop doing that. We shouldn't worship Candace. We shouldn't take everything she says as the truth without substantial evidence, but we should look at every single new revelation she brings and analyze it piece by piece and look at this thing holistically and try to understand who Tyler Robinson was working with or if he was even the killer. Am I wrong?
You know what, Lou? You're right. You're right. Keep Candace in politics. I'm sorry. Chet got a little emotional, and we're going to need to keep Candace around because she is the only one trying to solve this crime. So she can stay, but Erika Kirk, get her out of the public sphere. She's not doing any good for herself or Charlie's legacy by showing up at the funeral with a WWE style entrance, for lying about the autopsy that she had seen it, for saying Shabbat Shalom randomly in an interview. She is not, it's like she's rage baiting the entire online X community at the same time for no reason. So solve the crime, but what is she up to? And I saw a still frame of her face from some sort of interview she did recently, where it looked like she was possessed by a demon. Her eyes were so lit up with fury and rage. I don't think she is acting with the right intentions, to say the least.
We should obviously have some grace for Erika Kirk. She went through an atrocity, but she keeps throwing herself in the limelight for all to see, thrusting herself on stage and doing the same fake cry over and over and over again. I know she was like a little theater girl, little nerd, but she's a terrible fucking actor. Terrible. And every time she gets in front of the camera and weeps and pretends and puts on a show, it makes people doubt her. Even if she is completely innocent, it makes her look even more guilty. And it makes people stop supporting TPUSA and stop donating and stop volunteering and leaving the college chapters. We all saw her being interviewed by Barry Weiss when she said, "Erika, what do you have to say to all the conspiracy theorists?" And she scrunches up her face and gives her best angry growl and says, "Stop! Fucking weirdo! This isn't real. This is not real. If you were genuinely so torn and you said something wrong, people aren't going to hold it against you, but you're putting on a fucking show. So stop. You need to get away from the camera and let Andrew Kovic or whoever the hell else you want to be your surrogate to go out there and speak on behalf of you, Charlie, and the company. Bottom line. Because if not, you're going to topple the organization that Charlie spent his entire life building. You are ruining his legacy. So just, how about you, Erika? Stop.
You're right, Lou. The key for Erika is to be genuine. And that's what Charlie was. That's what she needs to be. She needs to stop living a lie and remember what she's in it for.
Now that we got that out of the way, I want to shift gears to the most important topic, Jesus Christ. Chet, you sent me a really interesting story this week about an appeal to heaven. Would you mind sharing with our audience exactly what this is?
Lou, by no means am I an expert on the appeal to heaven flag, but I do have a brief history of it. It depicts the eastern white pine on a white background with black letters that say, "An appeal to heaven." This was a protest to the King of England banning our colonial ancestors from harvesting this eastern white pine. And so when the colonists needed the timber for ship masts and they grew frustrated, they had the Pine Tree Riot. And it was one of the earliest organized bits of resistance to the British in 1772 in New Hampshire. In an era of common people against draconian overlords making laws and censorship and taxes out the wazoo, selling you out, selling your birthright to foreigners that they import by the million, changing the demographics of your country so that it's not your country anymore, and offering you the option to A, abort your children, and B, kill yourself. Has there ever been a moment where this flag is more appropriate? We're in the culmination of 60 years of leftist ideology pushed upon normal people who wanted to be left alone. And so I think when we draw from the spirit of our ancestors and say the answer to 1984 is 1776, this is something that is hand in hand, possibly even the origin of why we say things like that. So I find it hard for a group of young men to relate to anything better than the principles that George Washington and that crew of Americans back then were fighting for than the Appeal to Heaven flag.
Such a cool story you just shared, Chet. This flag, the pine tree flag, is a Revolutionary War flag. And this pine tree represents defiance against power, not just Great Britain, defiance against power. And the left has now labeled it a Christian nationalist flag because they hate our heritage and they hate Christianity. I say we hoist this flag once again. Let's raise this flag full staff above every American household this Christmas season. Let's burn all the pride flags. Let's stop saying HH and let's start saying Merry fucking Christmas to everyone we meet. Christ is King.
Christ is King. I implore all you Nimrods out there to order a flag. It doesn't even have to be embroidered and stitched and good. All it has to be is a flag. You can post it on your wall. You can fly it outside your American household if you're fortunate enough to have a flagpole. But you need to join this movement before it's too late. Anybody that's counter-signaling or acting against us, we will treat as an enemy, and you will be relegated to the crystals for eternity when the time comes. Like Lou said, they call this a white supremacist flag. And if you want to know why, all you Nimrods out there, it's because this is how Marxists attack society. They demoralize the populace, especially the heritage American populace, by claiming all of our history as white supremacy or some other slur to stir up resentment and to justify their revolution. They know they're lying, they know they're evil, and they know they hate you. Now you need to learn all those things.
But if you choose to fly this flag, don't let people view it as a white supremacist flag. Remember that if your individual rights are attacked, you have the right to resist. That's all the flag means. Has nothing to do with race, has nothing to do with anything besides humanity, ethics, and your own individual rights that you, as a religious person or a person who believes in their country, can resist against for the goodness of the people.
Now, Nimrods, let's talk about the Christmas story. I'm going to read you a passage from the book of Titus, chapter 2, verses 11 through 14. For the grace of God has appeared, bringing salvation for all people, training us to renounce ungodliness and worldly passions, and to live self-controlled, upright, and godly lives in the present age, waiting for our blessed hope, the appearing of the glory of our great God and Savior Jesus Christ, who gave himself for us to redeem us from all lawlessness and to purify for himself a people for his own possession, who are zealous for good works. In Titus chapter 2, verses 11 through 14, Paul reminds us that Christmas is not just about sentiment or tradition. It is the moment the grace of God appeared in the person of Jesus, in flesh and blood. Our Christmas gift this year at the Nimrod Pod is the gift of the grace of our holy God. And the key to celebrating Christmas this year is the deliberate, conscious enjoyment of the grace of God. Grace is not only how we are saved, it is how we are transformed. We embarked on this journey, a year through the Word with the Nimrods, the Nimrod Bible Study series. And we are truly being transformed. And we will hope that you join us, because opening this book is like opening the mouth to God. He wants to speak to you. Take time to listen to him. Like an unused gift, God's grace can sit on the shelf when we don't even understand it or take the time to enjoy it. This passage from Titus shows us that the grace of God is both extensive and effective. It reaches every part of our lives, and it actively trains us to live differently. As we move through this Christmas season and into the new year, Are you going to choose to live differently? Are you going to choose to allow God to transform you so that you can live differently?
Yes, Lou. Yes. And as all you Nimrods out there know, I'm not a firm believer in New Year's resolutions. So I'll start mine on Christmas. And I actually have already started it. My New Year's resolution is to read the Bible and not only read it, but understand it in a way that helps me in my day-to-day life grow closer to God and live as I should in terms of his word. That's my New Year's resolution. And I know we all have our self-improvement objectives. And I think all you Nimrods out there, if you need a day to start, why not make it the new year? So drop your screen time. Don't be watching any porn and show up for the people in your life. Be present and be a godly person. You'll find yourself at the end of the year, maybe 300% better spot than you were when you started. That's all Chet has to say for you.
I'm also not a believer in New Year's resolutions because I am a big believer in the starting right now and or the starting the next day. I believe if you have something you want to bring into fruition in your life, you don't got to wait for some big holiday to make this happen. You make a decision in your head and you start that. You start that right now. You start that the next day. For me, my New Year's resolutions, which I am actually planning to start tomorrow morning, are I want to begin every single morning before I do anything. I want to begin it with prayer. I want to get out of bed. I want to immediately get on my knees and pray for probably just 2 minutes, something short, just to get me on the right path of the day. I've always been very good at praying periodic short prayers throughout the day and praying at night, thinking about my day and talking with God in that fashion. But I believe my life will be changed by morning prayer because it'll get me on the right path for the day right when I wake up. The other thing I want to do, I travel a lot for work. And so sometimes I can find myself spending too much time on my phone, scrolling on X too much. So I want to replace my phone time with either reading a book or continuing to read the Bible or do research on something that I want to learn more about. So I am challenging you two Nimrods, Lou and Chet, to pray with me every morning if you do not already. And for all you Nimrods listening out there, I hope you all can join us in this journey starting tomorrow.
Beautifully said, both of you. I think we all have to say a prayer today. Jesus, if you're coming back today, then I pray that blank. What is that blank for you? What are you waiting for? Have you been waiting for the new year, all of 2025? Well, if this symbolic day means so much for you, then now's your chance to make that change in your life. If you're watching this in May of 2026, 5 months down the road, make that change today. Make that change now. Don't wait for the next New Year's to try something and inevitably stop it. Make a commitment. What is most important in your life? If Jesus was coming back today, what would you want to make sure you did before he judged you? Are you going to start reading the word? Are you going to spend time sitting with God, being available to God, listening to God through both his word and sitting with him in silence, ready to be enlightened? Are you going to serve the Lord? Are you going to get more involved with your church community? What is it that you're going to do? I challenge all you Nimrods out there to sit down, get a pen and a piece of paper, and write down your resolutions. What changes are you going to make? And don't start on the new year. Start today and change your life forever. Allow God to transform you. We covered a lot of topics today, Nimrods, but I hope we can all ground ourselves in the Christmas story as we head into the new year. This Christmas day, I hope you'll read Matthew chapters 1 to 2 and Luke chapters 1 and 2. And don't just read it, understand it. Read it multiple times. Read each sentence twice and pick as much as you can out of each word. And don't do it alone. Invite your family in, invite your friends in. Evangelize your friends and family this Christmas. The Nimrods are signing off. Thank you for tuning in and have a very Merry Christmas, not Happy Holidays.